Hey, Armand here with your astrology forecast for the week of March 16th, 2020. I predict that you'll be spending a lot of time by yourself in your house, anxiously watching the news. It's a shame I don't charge for this sage advice, huh? Okay, so that is true. And that's the forecast for next week and the week after as well. What we have going on now is interesting astrologically, if just plain scary in every other respect. Let's do a little backup thing over here. You'll recall that all the planets are wedged between Capricorn and fairly early Taurus, and actually now fairly late Capricorn and fairly early Taurus. And so they're all kind of concentrated together. The only exception to this is that the moon gets out and finds its way around the other parts of the zodiac during the course of the month. When everything is together at the period of time, say, that we're going into now, for about 2 weeks out of the month, everything is concentrated together, and we have this kind of cooking. I've been looking for the right analogy, and it's sort of, it's like you have a big pot. Forget alchemy, forget all the rest. It's like you have a big pot, right? You're cooking stuff in it. And so when the moon is together and all the planets are together, it's like everything is cooking. Not like nothing happens at that point in time. Cooking, the liquid could evaporate, the thing could boil over, a lot of stuff could happen, but it's like everything is cooking. And then when the moon pulls away, it's sort of like taken out for some taste. And then as the moon starts coming back in, this was last week, you sort of season, you adjust, you change what you can about the thing. And now we're putting it back in to cook for a little bit longer, for about 2 weeks. It's going to be cooking for about 2 weeks until the very end of the month. So it's this time when we lose perspective. It's the time when we don't see clearly what's happening. A lot is happening. We don't see it so clearly. Now, if we look at the week coming into last week's full moon, right, that was a kind of point of the potential, and it's all about the coronavirus, right? The potential became manifest, and we saw that clearly. How about last week's full moon in Virgo? Virgo, right? Detail-oriented and so on. And it's a full moon, so it's not necessarily the happiest type of Virgo moon. And it was opposite Neptune, so we have a lot of, expansion of things. And what were the catchphrases last week, right? You want to get like super over the top Virgo stuff, right? We have things like social distancing, in an abundance of caution. That's everybody's favorite phrase now. And of course, wash your hands. Perfect Virgo full moon stuff. All right. Coming out of that last week, we had now the moon is waning. We have a little bit more of a consolidation, adjustment period, a little bit more what are we going to do type of thing. Right? Put it all together. We have an expansion. We got something happening here. We go kind of a little bit nuts about it, kind of condenses into, well, what are we going to do? And now we're going back into that cooking phase. Technically speaking, the last quarter moon is on early Monday morning. If you're in Europe, it's around 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning on Monday. For the U.S. and, East or West Coast, U.S., South America, the last quarter moon is going to take place on Sunday or very, very early on Monday. So for practical purposes, early in the week. It's a kind of a little bit of a crazy moon there too. It's the moon in Sagittarius squaring the sun in Pisces. Not necessarily the most realistic kind of energy. Great for something, but not the most realistic kind of energy. And then once we get into Monday, from about noon Eastern time on Monday, a good chunk of Monday, no matter where you are, the moon goes into Capricorn. And from Tuesday onwards, for sure, we have this sort of, now we have all the planets compacted between Capricorn and Taurus. And so we have this real kind of intense, but not a lot of perspective. I'm not really sure the full moon in Virgo helped all that much in terms of perspective, but at least we could see some of what was going on. Now it gets harder to see. So Tuesday, Wednesday, the moon in Capricorn, it's a serious, it's a decision-making time where, again, we're sort of heading towards this sort of shutting down kind of energy. I think the Capricorn energy with Saturn there, I mean, there's decisions, there's decisiveness, there's actions, but there's kind of a bit of, a tendency to shut things down. It's exactly opposite the Cancer moon of 2 weeks ago, which was, again, a time when, an abundance of caution was the watchword. As we get through Thursday and Friday, we have the moon in Aquarius. The moon in Aquarius is a pretty strong kind of energy for this, because I feel that it's the airborne nature of Aquarius that is kind of resonating with our whole coronavirus thing. The issue here is the virus relative to the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, right? So again, I know I said it last week, there's a crisis of trust, there's a crisis of who do you believe, there's a crisis of where do you get your information from, do you trust folks to make the right decisions, and so on. That's the Capricornian aspect of things. And then, the actual airborne illness there, that's very Aquarian. I think I've been doing a little checking, and I think that it's Ceres time in Aquarius. When Ceres got into Aquarius is when we first really started hearing about the coronavirus, and so she'll be there till about April 24th. But there's more on that later. Also, well, let me hold off on that. Thursday, Friday, we have, again, this sort of, we'd love to be getting some perspective with Aquarius, but I'm not really sure that that's going to happen. I think what we're going to do is get an intensity. We're going to get some, Aquarian kind of stuff happening, but I'm not really sure we're going to get that much perspective. As then we go on the weekend, we are leaning into the new moon, and we have the moon going through Pisces, and it's very likely that we'll just have no perspective. And of course, things could seem quite extreme at that point in time. This is almost a revisit of the full moon. Now, I talk a lot about the coronavirus, what's going on in public and in our collective lives. Indeed, that is really, really key. You'll see the same types of things happening in your own personal life too, though. There was a kind of seeding of stuff back about a month ago, and then it sort of reached a head at the Virgo full moon. And you're still dealing with it, and now it's going back into the pot for some more cooking. And in about 2 weeks, at the end of March, it'll pop back out. Now, all that having been said, there's a couple of interesting things that are happening this week. One is that the sun, late on Thursday Eastern time, early Friday in Europe, will go into Aries, and that is the Aries equinox. Being northocentric here, it's the beginning of springtime, officially the beginning of springtime. It's nice to have that going on, at least, for those of us up north over here. The days and nights are balanced. It's the exaltation of the sun. It pulls us away from Pisces season. And, although Mercury is still in Pisces, there's still Piscean stuff going on. But it pulls us away from that. It turns us more into a sort of action mode, as opposed to a kind of, sit back and watch what's happening and just, life is going on and what do I do? Everything is out of control. Pisces is good about surrender to some things, but you could, at this point in time, you could probably use a little fiery Aries energy. So we start with that late on Thursday. You can look at that as being Thursday. We'll feel that Friday, right? That sun at 0 degrees Aries is going to be a big thing Friday through Saturday. It would be a hot, active time. Now, another thing that is happening this week, and you'll get a video for this. I'm going to plan on putting the video out on Wednesday. It's actually happening late on Saturday, early Sunday, and that is Saturn is going into Aquarius. Saturn spends about 2.5 years in a sign, so it's a big deal that Saturn goes into Aquarius. That video will be out on Wednesday, I think, all things being equal. The video will drop, as people say these days. There's not really a lot of positive associations with the word drop, to tell you the truth. I don't know. I don't like it. So the video will be out, I'm hoping, on Wednesday. I'll see if I can get it maybe done a little bit earlier. We have Mars hitting Jupiter and Pluto in Aquarius, in Capricorn. And this is very much a kind of, really bringing this energy, particularly the coronavirus stuff, bringing it to a real head. Okay, so this is a real concentration of that. Pay a lot of attention to what happens as Mars hits Jupiter on Friday and then goes on Sunday to hit Pluto. But really and truly, it's just the end of the week. It's just packed with this energy. You're liable to see a major shift and change in the whole situation. I don't know what that will do for markets. Who knows what anything is doing for anything right now, right? But I think that it's worth watching the weekend. This is a kind of, we got to do something, but also perhaps that sense of, stuff is already happening without us. This is a trigger point for that Saturn Pluto conjunction. We're hitting the trigger point for that, and there are a lot of trigger points, but this is a major one. I mean, we're already in the midst of things, so. What we're looking at this week is a concentration of energy, a loss of perspective, a lot of activity. There's really quite a bit of activity going on. I'm giving you the short story because, you're probably not excited about the Sun sextile Uranus or, Sun sextile Saturn or Mercury sextile Uranus. I'm sure it's not the thing. There's some creativity and so on. You can kind of work that. The real truth of the matter is we're in a concentration period of time. It's not a time to sit still. It's never really a time to sit still, but it's not a time that is going to be quite as over. We don't have the perspective. We'll act, but we don't have the perspective to act. Probably spend a lot of time by yourself watching YouTube videos and things like that. That's not a bad plan for the week. And I will see you, I'll see you on Wednesday for the Saturn reporting. Bye-bye.